So March, or possibly April, that's the month your Uncle Spurt will be hitting the drink with all the ferocity of a starving man attacking a steak. For that is when Apple is rumoured to be launching the sequel to its pocket-sized abomination, the iPhone SE3. The smartphone equivalent of being simultaneously jabbed in the eye and kicked in the kidneys. The iPhone SE4 has leaked more than a pensioner's pants these last few weeks, to the point where very little of this dinky mid-range smartphone remains a mystery. So will the iPhone SE4 actually be a competent mid-range smartphone, or will it be yet another sandwich, where both the filling and the bread are made from a fresh heap of steaming feces? And I mean, frankly, trembling tech journalists and influencers are so terrified of being cast into blacklist oblivion that Tim Cook could literally just empty his guts into a white box with the Apple logo slapped on it and it would still get a perfect 5-star review. Which of course makes this week's intro jingle all the more appropriate.
Techspert Weekly!
Now first up, yes indeed, from all of the leaks it does appear that the SE4 will run with the iPhone 14 style design, albeit with a couple of key tweaks. For one, this will be the first of Apple's SE phones to sport the Action button rather than that old school alert slider. And this is fully programmable, so you can get it to do pretty much whatever you like. Within reason, obviously. Sadly, you can't just push this button to get the phone to magically transform into an Android. And likewise, the iPhone SE4 will have a proper bit of USB-C port action for charging, rather than one of those old proprietary Lightning ports. Of course, the wired charging will once again be slower than an asthmatic tortoise, most likely capped at 20 watts, but you can once again expect full support for wireless charging. And as for the camera tech, well, contrary to early rumours, it's now apparent that the iPhone SE4 will sport a single 48MP shooter tucked away in that top left corner, rather than the dual lens setup seen on the iPhone 14. This is most likely the same 48MP sensor used for the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max, as well as many subsequent iPhones. And certainly it was capable of churning out some pretty respectable snaps, albeit with the usual saturation issues and some dodgy behaviour in more ambient light. The only other camera slapped on this thing will be a 12MP selfie shooter housed in Apple's trademark comedically massive mustache notch, which of course once again covers up a sizable chunk of that display. Kinda like going to the cinema and being sat behind some hipster wearing a trilby. Speaking of that display, sweet mercy, Apple has apparently finally upgraded to an OLED screen, replacing that eye-gouging IPS atrocity slapped on the iPhone SE3. That said, if it is the same screen as the iPhone 14, you can expect the refresh rate to be stuck at just 60Hz. Bit of a blast from the past. But in better news, Apple's fresh A18 chipset should run the show, backed by 8GB of RAM, so gaming should be a suitably smooth experience. And of course you can expect the iPhone SE4 to be heavily marketed as coming with a good bit of Apple Intelligence, an oxymoron for the ages. And so far, yeah, Apple Intelligence has its limits. It can make you sound a bit more like some inbred eaten toff in your messages, while Siri is still unfortunately thicker than the skin on a month-old rice pudding. But hey, you know, there's still a wee while to go, and I've got my optimism pants pulled right up to my nipples, so you never know, Apple may well implement some killer, game-changing new AI features sometime between now and the actual iPhone SE4 launch. So that right there in a nutshell is what we think we know so far from the various leaks and rumours about Apple's fresh new mid-range mobile. And it's no big secret that I'm not exactly a massive fan of the iPhone SE3. Frankly, I think it's a tragedy right up there with the day that Elon Musk's dad forgot to pull out. But after sifting through all the various leaks and rumour pieces about the iPhone SE4, I've got to admit I'm not immediately beset with the desire to douse myself in petrol and light a match. After all, if it's not just a massive dripping bowl of bum gravy, then it sounds like Apple has actually sorted out some of the key problems with the iPhone SE3, like the duff screen and the rather bollocks camera. And if they've actually managed to sort out the CAC battery life to boot, well, the iPhone SE4 could be a bit of all right. We don't have too much longer to wait, kiddies, because the iPhone SE4 is due to launch around sort of March time, possibly pushing into April, with the price tag starting around the £500 mark. And your Uncle Spurt has already started saving up for his review sample and the inevitable crate of special brew it'll take to get me through the review. So are you positively foaming at the mouth at the thought of Apple's latest pocket filler? Well, definitely let us know how thrilled you are using the Nic Cage emotional scale. Are you merely Willy's Wonderland Nick? A slight grimace and zero f***s given really? Or are you full-on face-off Nick? Get in my pants right now. Definitely let us know down below. And now, regrettably, it is time for the part of the show that possibly ranks a few IQ points below even Apple Intelligence. It's viewer comments.
Viewer comments.
So let's start this week with Abby9641, who says, I like how you have this persona that is always on the verge of a mental breakdown. I mean, yeah, I certainly do like to live on the edge of sanity. I don't think it really helps that basically I spend all day long just sitting alone in this room, and when I do speak, I'm speaking to you, and you can't speak back. Which is really just the exact same as Tom Hanks painting a face on a basketball in Castaway. Ah, don't forget about me, cockhole! Of course, Mr. Wanksock, my very real and bestest friend in the world, absolutely helped to keep me anchored in reality. Ah, Jesus Christ! You're losing your marbles even faster than you're losing your hair! And your breath smells like turds! Now, last week's show was all about the OnePlus Open 2/Oppo Find N5, certainly the foldable I'm most excited about in 2025. Plenty of correspondence on the subject, including Jared Cloak Boas, who says, I'd rather have a foldable with a decent battery, but go on guys, keep making them thinner and thinner. Well, I think this will probably be about as thin as you can possibly get as far as foldables go, because for a start, make them any thinner and you won't actually be able to get a USB port on them, which would be slightly problematic. And also, frankly, make them any more slender and they'll probably crack in half if you so much as fart near them. And thankfully, I found that the battery life on the original OnePlus Open was pretty bloody good, so as long as they don't actually drop the capacity at all for the OnePlus Open 2, then you should have all day play, no worries. Chris Johansson says, Oppo is not a China-only brand, so it's not quite accurate to frame OnePlus as the global version. I got the Find N3 here in Australia, where OnePlus doesn't sell at all. Yeah, fair play, they do apparently release the Find N phones in a small select number of other regions outside of China, but certainly here in the likes of Blighty, the OnePlus Open will be the version of the Find N that we get. Etienne Sharp says, foldy phones would play havoc with my paranoia, so expensive and so very breakable. They'd never survive Etienne's patented shoved off a table in the pub by a pint glass test. That sounds similar to my own preferred durability test, which involves downing several pints down the pub and then trying to work out on Google Maps where the bloody hell I actually am while staggering in a random direction, usually straight into a lamppost or a hedge. Le Crab says, I fell in love with the Automagic V3 when I got to fondle it during IFA 24. Would really love one, but the price is holding me back. Yeah, a quick fondle of the Magic V3 is all that I've managed so far as well. Kind of sad that that one passed me by. I do keep thinking I should probably get one in retroactively and do a proper full-on review of it, but then my gaze wanders towards the literal tower of smartphone boxes over in my review pile of shame, and then my hand inadvertently grasps for my whiskey glass, and approximately 12 hours later I wake up basting in a soup of my own bodily fluids. Firmahand is erratic says, so y'all, you won't believe it, I saw a Fold 6 in real life, a literal Fold 6. It was at the restaurant I work at. I mean, I see them quite a bit more regularly, but then I do hang around with a lot of fellow tech nerds. So yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw one actually in the hands of a normal, non-nerdy person. Kam Govender says, I would genuinely like to see Samsung attempt a proper gaming phone. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would be quite interesting for sure. It'd be something completely different from Samsung for a start, and also not much competition in that area at the moment. You've basically got Asus's ROG phones, you've got the Black Sharks, the Red Magics. I haven't seen a Black Shark for a while, actually. And of course, I'd still absolutely adore Sony to have another stab at a gaming smartphone as well, although I think the Xperia Play and the general success story of that has buried any hopes of it. CF542 says, LG made a lot of innovative designs which unfortunately few people bought, which is why they left the market behind. Turns out people didn't want innovation, they just wanted increasingly boring lookalike phones that all copy each other's designs. Long story short, like always, it's people what is the problem. And of course I can understand not wanting to take a punt on some outlandish device, especially when it's something you might be stuck with for a good couple of years or so and something you're going to rely on every bloody day of your life. But at the same time, I wish that smartphones weren't quite so f***ing boring. Phil G says, well, hello there, long time viewer but first time commenting. Where do you get your phone backgrounds from when reviewing the phones? Don't ever remember it being mentioned. Thanks, lad. And ZGL2569 says, respond to this even though I already know the answer. Where do you get your wallpapers from? Ignore and I will curse Sunderland to miss promotion. I don't think Sunderland need cursing for that, to be honest. They're perfectly capable of f***ing up their season all by themselves. They did a good bit of luck to beat Borough the other night, that's for goddamn sure. But sure, I'll acquiesce to your demands, because this stupid f***ing jingle will eat up another 10 seconds. Wall.alphacoders.com, wall.alphacoders.com, that's where my wallpapers come from, wall.alphacoders.com. There you go, that's 10 less seconds of god-awful content that I have to extract from my arse. Spasmado says, where did you get that fantastic Cowboy Bebop poster? And that bad boy was just an Amazon jobby, one of the first ones that pops up when you do a search for it. But fair warning though, there is so much quality Bebop merch on Amazon that when I searched for this poster, I almost got dragged into the Amazon equivalent of every B&M shopping trip I've ever been on. All the UK peeps will know what I'm banging on about here, but basically every time I go into a B&M, it's to get one item and one item only. It's usually like a light bulb or a pack of batteries or something. And yet every bloody time I end up emerging with a trolley absolutely overflowing with garbage. You know the kind of bollocks as well, like stuff like a problematic cactus wearing a sombrero that sings Ricky Martin songs, or a solar-powered tea cozy. And you get halfway across the car park and you just stop and you look down into the trolley and you just wonder, what on earth just happened? And better make this the final comment because bang out of time. Neely says, Jazzmags, Uncle Spurt showing his true age there. Yeah, I do wonder if kids these days would reckon you were just having them on if you said we used to get our grot analog style. Yeah, happy memories as a 14-year-old strolling up to the counter of my local newsagent with a copy of a top shelf mag and a couple of other random bits that I just grabbed so it didn't look like I was a complete pervert. Some dishwasher tablets, a Lionel Richie CD and a Twix, which of course shoved straight in the bin as soon as I got out of there. Actually no, I'd probably eat the Twix. Anyway, that's enough nostalgia for 1 week, and that's enough viewer comments for 1 week as well. But a massive thank you to everyone who scribbled something down in the commenty box thing last week. Much appreciated. Please do the same again. We'll try and get through as many of those as possible next week. And speaking of next week,
Next week, what the f is next week?
Well, the Mobile World Congress pre-briefs are kicking off already next week, even though MWC itself is still the best part of a month away. But of course I can't discuss any of that stuff because I am NDA'd right up the rectal region. But fear ye not, still have plenty of hot content coming your way. So please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell if you haven't done so already. And a massive thank you for sticking with me right through to the bitter end of this shower of shit. Make sure you have yourselves a bloody wonderful weekend. Hello.